Well, hello and good afternoon, and thank you for joining with us today at this special town hall meeting. And for the people who are joining with us from across Ontario, welcome. There's some new information that we're going to share with you now, and I guess really for all of you, nothing's really changed about the responsibility that every individual one of us has in protecting our loved ones here at the home in Barrie. The rules have changed. It happens every day that we have to watch and sometimes learn about new policy from the news or the media, and we're going to communicate policy through you today. And there'll be some changes, but they're good ones because they're to protect your family member. And again, really the responsibility for the health of your loved one here at the home is all of our responsibility to make sure that we're not going to make life more difficult than it is now. We know you miss your loved ones. There's some people, some loved ones who we haven't seen since there was snow on the ground, and we know that you miss them. I'm going to pass this over to Shirley. She's going to go through some of the steps in the new policy and the new regulations that's been given to us from the province of Ontario. Again, thank you for lending us your loved one. We love them. We love them too. All right, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Today it's a little bit different. We're meeting outside. Our technical support, we're not able to come in the building today. So it's just a lovely day, and I hope that everybody can hear as I share with you some new protocols going forward. So as you all know, the ministry has informed, Premier Ford has informed everyone that visits indoors are now allowed. So we have developed a policy that I'm going to share with you. I'm also going to send you a copy. It has a lot of information that you really need to read. I'm just going to hit the highlights. And then if you're coming in or visiting outside, inside, there's so many different categories now that I think the best way for you to understand all that is to read the information that we'll share with you. So the goal of the policy is to ensure the health and safety of the residents, staff, and visitors during and after a pandemic while there's no vaccine available. Our objectives are to allow our residents and their loved ones to reunite in person in a safe manner during the COVID-19 pandemic, and to prevent the pandemic infection virus from affecting any residents, staff, and visitors. So I'm just going to go down to the section in the policy. On June the 10th, 2020, the ministry sent out a directive. It's directive number 3, in which it outlines very specifically the rules and regulations that we are to follow as a long-term care home. So I'm just going to read this particular section from the directive. BRHD is directed to resume resident visits with their loved ones in a gradual and cautious manner. Everyone is to act responsibly as the battle to contain COVID-19 is not over and the risk to our loved ones still remains. Since a vaccine has not yet been developed and residents in long-term care homes are more medically complex than the general population and therefore are more susceptible to infection from COVID-19. On June the 18th, we initiated the outdoor visitations, and on July the 22nd, we will initiate indoor visitation and essential caregiver visits. As the pandemic situation evolves in Ontario, this policy will be adjusted as necessary. And also, we just want to caution you that prior to scheduling any kind of visitation, you need to consider your personal health and susceptibility to the virus in determining whether visiting BRHD is appropriate. Where it is not possible or advisable for in-person visits, outside or inside the home as applicable, BRHD will continue to provide virtual and/or window visiting options, i.e. phone calls, Skype, and FaceTime. This policy is based on the following principles: safety, emotional well-being, and flexibility. BRHD strives to incorporate the following concepts into the policy: compassion, equity, non-maleficence, proportionality, transparency, and reciprocity, providing resources to those who are disadvantaged by the policy. So I'm going to give you 3 definitions. The 2 are very important for you as family members. There are essential visitors, and there have been essential visitors coming into the building since this started. An essential visitor would be somebody who had to come in and do some kind of maintenance on our building, or somebody coming in to do phlebotomy. And if somebody was at end of life, then they would be allowed to have a family member coming in, and they would be considered an essential visitor. They all have to pass the screening test, and they all have to have had a negative COVID test. Essential caregiver. This is new, and this will start on Wednesday. An essential caregiver is a person capable of providing caregiving support and assistance, i.e. feeding, mobility, personal hygiene, and cognitive stimulation. The essential caregiver is any person who the resident or the substitute decision maker identifies and designates as capable of providing the caregiving assistance. For example, a family member or a friend. Essential caregiver visits are not permitted when a resident is self-isolating or symptomatic or the home is in an outbreak. Visitor is neither an essential visitor nor an essential caregiver and is visiting primarily for social reasons. A visitor is not permitted when a resident is self-isolating, symptomatic, or when the home is in an outbreak. Based on a specific criteria as outlined in the procedure, a visitor may be further defined as indoor or outdoor. Training. Infection prevention and control training is provided to all BRHD staff. Visitors will be given a Visiting Your Loved One in Time of COVID-19 brochure, mask information, and information on how to put on and take off PPE. A copy of this policy and any updates will be communicated to residents and their substitute decision makers. All records relating to visits between visitors and their loved ones during the pandemic will be documented. So here's the procedure. The scheduler, which is Amy or the designate, will make arrangements for scheduled visits, including, but not limited to, notifying the resident, the staff, the screener of the resident's scheduled appointment. So what that's basically meaning is Amy will make an appointment. She will then inform the care center, the resident, the screener. So what will happen is the schedules for visiting residents indoors will be put in the nurse's planner so that they know when that is happening. The list will be kept at the screening desk. And if you're doing an outdoor visit, there will be a list on the door listing who's coming to the visitation booths. This will facilitate communication and preparedness. We want to ensure that the appropriate visitor screening tools are available for screening. There will be signage to direct the visitors to both indoor and outdoor visitation areas. We have a visit supervisor or a screener as appropriate. Sorry, going too fast. Okay, so we'll have a visitor supervisor or it will be a screener. We're not sure at this point in time. The screener is to screen the visitor, as would the visit supervisor who's doing outdoor visits. It would bring the resident to the meeting location, monitor the visit, and return the resident to the home unit. And then they would ensure that cleaning and disinfectant is occurring. So visitor responsibilities. Visitors must schedule a visit with Amy. Amy can be contacted Monday to Friday, 9:30 to 4:30, and can be reached at our phone number 705-719-6700, extension 304, or email her at askidmore@bobrumble.org. Please review the visitor package, which is what I will be sharing with you later electronically. You will be screened at your visit, and that will include taking your temperature and asking you the questions. We need you to answer honestly. All indoor visits, the visitors are required to verbally attest to the screener that they have tested negative to COVID within the previous 2 weeks. Outdoor visitors should continue to be tested every 2 weeks, but are not required to attest as having a negative COVID test in the past 2 weeks. Please note, BRHD is not responsible for providing the testing. You will be asked to use hand sanitizer prior to the visit. Please follow the hand washing techniques as identified in Appendix B, which you will receive later. You must wear the appropriate PPE as directed, which will depend on the type of visitor you are. Please avoid touching your face, eyes, ears, and adjusting your glasses. If you have long hair, please tie it back. Respect the guidelines that we've put in place. Please ask if you don't understand them. Your visit is limited to your loved one. No visits to other residents and visitors or staff is permitted. Please be considerate and respectful when interacting with individuals, as this is a very stressful time for everyone. Visitor cooperation is appreciated. And here's some notes for you to consider. Visitor non-compliance with BRHD rules, including respect for the residents and staff in the home, will be the basis for discontinuation of visits. In addition, if you are non-compliant, the resident you are visiting may need to be placed in isolation for 14 days and have a COVID test completed. Your visit may be supervised. You may wish to bring a beverage to share with your loved one. The container must be wiped down with a disinfectant wipe before you give it to your loved one, and we will have that available for you. Any additional items that you want to bring in for your family member, please follow the same protocol as before. Leave it at the front entrance. After 2 or 3 days, we will disinfect it and deliver it to your family member. We suggest you minimize jewelry and accessories. We suggest you leave your purse in the car. The fewer items you bring in, the lower the risk of wire transfer. Essential caregiver and indoor visits are not permitted to visit when a resident is self-isolating, symptomatic, or in outbreak.
Can you repeat that one, please?
Sorry. So there will be no visits if we are in outbreak or if the resident has to self-isolate. There will be no visitor meals provided during COVID-19, and there are no pets allowed in the building. I touched briefly on essential visitors. Again, those are people that are bringing food, delivering food, providing maintenance, or are essential healthcare services, or visiting a very ill or palliative resident. So I'm not going to cover that anymore at this point in time. Essential caregivers, this is new. It starts on Wednesday. Essential caregivers must schedule their visit. Scheduled visits are between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. The essential caregiver must leave no later than 6 p.m., as that is when our screener will be leaving. BRHD reserves the right to determine the frequency and the duration of the essential visit by the caregiver. A maximum of one essential caregiver per resident is allowed at one time. You can speak to me or Jen West for an exception to allow 2 persons from the same bubble per resident at one time. An essential caregiver is a person who is capable of providing caregiving support, assistance, i.e. feeding, mobility, personal hygiene, cognitive stimulation. Essential caregiver is any person who the resident or the substitute decision maker identifies as providing that caregiving support, assistance. It may be a family member or a friend. Essential caregiver visits are not permitted when a resident is self-isolating or we go into outbreak. So the procedure would be, please enter the home via the front door. If you have to wait to be let in, please line up outside and wait your turn. Please practice physical distancing when coming into the home or waiting in line at the front door. When leaving, it would be the same rules. Please practice physical distancing. The screener will let you in and conduct the screening test. You must pass the active screening test as identified on the Essential Caregiver Screening Tool, which includes answering questions and having your temperature taken. You must verify a verbal attestation to the fact that you have had a COVID test in the previous 2 weeks and tested negative, and have subsequently not tested positive, and that you are not experiencing any of the typical symptoms. We are not responsible for your testing. You need to comply with good infection prevention controls and practices. You will be required to wear a surgical mask at all times when in the home. The essential caregiver is encouraged to provide their own procedural mask upon entry into the home. If the essential caregiver does not have one will be provided to you. You must also wear a clean cloth gown while visiting, which will be provided by BRHD. If the visitor wishes to wear eye protection, you may bring clean eye goggles or a face shield. Please ensure the face protection is disinfected after each use. We will not be providing face protection for visitors. We do ask if you can bring in your own surgical masks, as we really don't want to go into our pandemic supply in case we go into outbreak and don't have enough. You may enter, once you have been screened, you may enter the home on your own and go directly to the resident area and locate your loved one. You must only visit the resident, the caregiver must only visit the resident that they are there to see. If the essential caregiver wishes to discuss non-urgent resident status concerns with a staff member, please call a staff member from outside the home. Urgent concerns should be communicated with the visit supervisor or the screener. So when you come in to visit your loved one, you are just to be with that person, not moving around the building, either in the dining room if you're assisting with meals or in the resident's room with the resident. Please do not call staff in to talk to them. Use the phone, call them once you have left the building if it's not urgent. If it's urgent, use the phone and call the nurse. Please disinfect and wipe the chair and table in the resident's room or in the dining room once you're done. If you need to use the washroom, please use the washroom we designated at the front door only. And please disinfect and wipe it down when you're done. Please do not use the resident's washrooms. When you're leaving, we must take your temperature and ask you the same questions we did when you arrived. You remove your PPE, the soiled gown should be placed in the laundry basket at the front. The mask should be discarded upon exit. Practice hand hygiene before removing the mask and prior to exiting the home. So that's an essential visitor. Now, visitors. A visitor is neither an essential visitor nor essential caregiver, and a visiting primarily for social reasons. An indoor visitor. You need to schedule your visit, and that's between 9 and 4 p.m., 7 days a week. Indoor visits are not conducted during resident meal times. A maximum of 2 visitors from the same bubble are allowed per resident at one time. At this time, visits are scheduled for a maximum of 30 minutes. Extended visits may be prearranged with consideration for out-of-town visitors. Priority for weekend visits will be given to individuals who are unable to visit during the day, Monday to Friday. BRHD reserves the right to determine the frequency and the duration of the indoor visits. You will enter the home via the front door. If you need to wait, please line up. As I said before, please practice physical distancing. The screener will let you in and conduct the screening test. You must pass the active screening test as identified on the indoor visitor screening tool. You must have had a COVID negative test done within the past 2 weeks. You must comply with good infection prevention control practices. You will be required to wear a surgical procedural mask at all times when in the home. The visitor is encouraged to provide their own mask if they could, please. If the essential caregiver does not have one, we will provide one. You must wear a clean cloth gown while visiting, which we will provide. If you wish to wear eye protection, you may bring that in on your own. It is not necessary. The screener will accompany the indoor visitor to the identified visiting area in the home, which is the lobby area. There will be 3 indoor visitation areas set up in the lobby area for visitation purposes. The screener will then notify the care center that the staff can bring the resident out to the visitation area. You must only visit with the identified resident as appropriate and no other resident, visitor, or staff member. If you wish to discuss non-urgent concerns, please make a call once you've left the home. Urgent concerns can be communicated to the visit supervisor, or the screener. The screener will notify the appropriate care center to pick up the resident when the visit is over. The screener will then screen you out, ensuring that your temperature is taken and the questions are asked. Each visitor needs to remove their PPE. Soiled gown goes into the laundry basket. The mask should be discarded, and you should practice hand hygiene. An indoor visitor may use the washroom near the front door. Again, disinfecting and wiping down. Outdoor visits really haven't changed that much, except that now you're allowed to have 2 visitors. And its scheduled visits are between 9 and 11:15, 7 days a week. So they're only occurring in the morning. And they will not occur during meal times. Extended visits may be prearranged with consideration for out-of-town visitors. Priority again for weekend visits will be given to individuals who are unable to visit during the day, Monday to Friday. We reserve the right to prioritize visits based on the needs of the residents. You do need to pass an active screening test. We encourage you to get your COVID test. However, you do not need to have a COVID test to do an outdoor visit. Outside visits will continue as before with the visit supervisor. We've developed a chart. Let me see if I'm getting it right this time to the camera. I will be sending this to you. This is a really good, useful tool. So it's got 3 columns: essential caregivers, which you really don't need to be too concerned about. But then it has visitor in. Oh no, sorry, I am wrong. These are the 3 areas that you need to be concerned about. Essential caregivers. I keep getting essential visitors mixed up with essential caregivers. Forgive me. Essential caregivers, which some of you will be. It lists what you need to have, what you need to do, and how it all works. Then the visitor indoor, there's a visitor indoor and a visitor outdoor. So essential caregiver, visitor indoor, visitor outdoor. And it's just a quick guide to help you look at what do I need to do, what's my process. So we'll be sending that to you as well. And that is really the end of what I wanted to talk to you about today. And I don't know, as we mentioned earlier in the chat box, there's about a 90-second time delay. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. I'm happy to try and answer them all now. If not, I will certainly send out my responses when I send out this information to you.
So we do have one question from Linda. Hello. In the next couple of weeks, would I be allowed to bring a birthday present for my mother to be hung in my mother's room?
Absolutely. Just bring it to the front area where it will stay for a few days, and then we'll make sure it goes to your mom's room and it gets hung up.
We're just waiting for more questions.
Okay. I know that was a lot of information, and it'll probably be much better when you sit down and be able to read it and digest it.
We have a question from Joanne. I was late coming into the meeting. Am I allowed to hug my mom on a visit outside?
An outdoor visit will be, you'll only be able to hug her by using the hugging station and using the long plastic gloves. Outdoor visits do not require a COVID negative test, so there are strict adherence there. So no, you couldn't hug her other than through the hugging station on an outdoor visit.
We have a question from Bobby. I was told on email that you can provide a mask with a window in it. Is this so?
We have masks with windows in them, and they were specifically designed for the deaf. So it would be a matter if, yeah, I guess we could, yes, because we can wash them and reuse them. Yes, we do have that option.
We have a question from
Sorry, but if you're doing an indoor visit, you can't use that mask. It has to be a procedural mask, and that's been the issue for us. We have the masks, but we haven't used them because they're not permitted on the floor in the unit. So if you're doing an outdoor visit, yes, you could use it. An indoor visit, no, you couldn't use it.
We have a question from Patricia. Am I allowed to hug my son during an indoor visit?
I believe so. I am sure when the residents see you, there's going to be nothing that can stop them from grabbing and hugging and kissing you. And I totally get that. But when you can, do practice social distancing. And that's why it is so important that we are honest, we are careful, we are responsible, because none of us would want to bring that into the home and that to our residents or to our loved ones.
We have a question from Bev. How are we to address other residents? You say no visit with others. Can we have conversations with them?
Certainly, you cannot just walk by them and ignore them. I would say you can say hello to them, and then I would suggest you keep on going because the residents don't understand social distancing. So we're asking you to be polite and, say, hi, nice to see you. I have to go see my mom. And say to them, I'm sorry, we're not allowed to stand and chat. And the residents, we're obviously talking to them about that. And I know it's going to be difficult, but certainly, don't be rude about it. But we need you to really focus on the person that you've come to visit because it can very quickly get very much out of hand.
Another question from Joanne. Why the difference between an indoor and outdoor visiting regarding hugging?
The person who's visiting outdoors is not required to have a COVID test. So they can come and we don't know if they have COVID or don't. So they're only allowed to do the visitation booths. If the person coming indoors, they have to have had a COVID negative test, and that's the difference.
A question from Bev. Is majority of essential caregiver time spent in the residence room?
That is correct. If the way it was worded prior to the announcement last week was that essential caregivers were people who provided care to their loved ones prior to COVID-19, because obviously we've had new residents move in and we don't know who their caregivers are. What we're asking families to do is identify who the caregiver, essential caregiver, if you have one for your loved one, is. And that will be the person that will come in. They are to go to their family member's room, which we ask them to stay there. Or if they go to the dining room, we have it set up where you would be socially separated from other people, so you won't be in contact with other residents. So at this point in time, like I read earlier, we're opening up slowly and cautiously. So we're just asking you, I know we all want to get back to the way it was. We're just asking you to let us do this slowly and cautiously so that we don't have to close back up again. So we're saying, please come in. Once you've been screened, essential caregiver, go to your family member in the room, if not in the room, at the dining room table. Dining room is finished, back to the room at this point in time. That may change next week, but right now, that's the way we would like to proceed, cautiously, carefully.
We'll give a couple more minutes for questions.
Sure. I just want to remind everybody that these protocols and processes that we have put in place are in line with what every other home in the area is doing, also in line with what best practice is, in line with what our association says, and also in line with what the Ministry of Long-Term Care is asking us to do.
Just a comment. I'm deeply grateful for all that you do.
Thank you. So there are no more questions, but that doesn't mean you can't ask more questions. Please feel free to email me at any time. I will try to get your answer. I just want to remind everybody to be kind and patient. We've had some situations where our poor staff have been yelled and screamed at. They've been wished COVID upon. That's not the way we want to go forward. We will do everything we can to try and help you reconnect with your loved one, but we will also be very diligent in ensuring that this COVID-19 does not come into our home. So I wish you all safety. I look forward to you to seeing your faces again and being able to say hi from a distance. And there's a question.
Is there a time limit on the visits?
So when you call, are we talking visitor or essential caregiver? Is this a visit? So I will say a visit. When you call, we are saying 30 minutes. If you wish longer, when you call Amy, please let her know so that we can try and accommodate that. Because we realize that 30 minutes may not be long enough and you may want to do an hour. So let us know how long you would like your visit to be and we will try to accommodate it. And I want to just say, thanks for tuning in. And we'll talk next month unless Mr. Ford surprises us again. Stay safe.